An old-fashioned heirloom plant is known as flowering quince. And you'll see it, on some of the older buildings because it was a commonly used plant as a foundation planting many, many years ago. It's not seen as much today, but it is becoming more popular. But when you're pruning plants like this that is filled with thorns, or your roses, which can be filled with thorns, you need to be careful. There is something called rose handler's disease. Many people that commercially cut roses in this country and in other countries are subject to it. There's a fungus that affects humans on the tips of the thorns. So when you get scratched or poked, there's a small chance, and I say small, but there's a small chance it can infect you. And it can infect your lymphatic system, and you get these problems with your hands and other places on your body. And it takes quite a while to cure. It is a fungus called sporotrichosis. So, a couple things keep in mind when you're pruning quince. And this glove's probably not even heavy duty enough. This one's a little better. You want gloves that are resistant or impervious to thorns. Sometimes paintball gun masks work really well. And sometimes they have outfits with gloves, or ski gloves work very well. But you do want to have protective eyewear when you're pruning this. So make sure that you have good eyewear, good gloves, maybe 2 shirts or a thicker shirt. Or you might want to use a long-handled pruner rather than a hand pruner, because you can reach in and prune this back. Sometimes you want to cut it all the way back. Sometimes you just want to thin it out so it continually flowers for you. But again, it's filled with long thorns, so you got to be very careful that you don't get scratched. Roses are very important too on how to prune those, and I'll show you how to prune roses too. Knockout roses are pretty easy to take care of. But one thing you're going to notice, the thorns are pointed toward the roots. So when you reach in like this, it catches you. So I made a decision last year to prune this a little differently. These 2 roses were exactly the same height. So instead of reaching in, which is a little more difficult without getting stuck by thorns, I just came in last year and cut this down to about 18 to 24 inches. And look how nice it's grown back. But the other option is to reach in, and again, with long pruners, and so you can come in and thin this out and trim it back, try to trim back to little buds or branches, just like this. And then you're gonna have to reach in carefully and pull this out, and just watch for your sleeves, and that's why I wear 2 layers or a thick shirt. This beautiful pink quince flowers a little taller on some of the taller stems, but one way to prune this is every 4 or 5 years, come in and prune those stems down to 18 inches and let these younger stems take over. Again, wear the protective eyewear, clothes, face wear. Some of you may know this plant by a different name, quince jam or quince preserves. And they produce, late in the season, a large fruit. Now this is kind of shriveled. It'll end up being about 2 or 3 times this size. And this particular type here is always loaded with fruit. And people make the tart quince jam or preserves. I will mention one other thing about this plant. The honeybees and the pollinators love it. Again, it's an old-fashioned heirloom plant known as quince. It's easy to grow in a garden. I'm Mark Viette. Join me next time.
For more garden tips, go to inthegardenradio.com.